Jasper's room is shaped like a rectangular prism. That simply means that it's a rectangle. When you look at it, the ceiling is flat, the walls are flat, there's no odd shapes to it. His ceiling is 14 feet long and 10 feet wide, and the walls are 8 feet high. So if you draw a picture of what that looks like, and you think about the prism of it, the walls are 8 feet high, and then we're talking 14 feet long, 10 feet wide. So there's kind of the basic shape of his room. Now there's one door that is 6 feet high and 3.5 feet wide. All right, so he's got a door somewhere. And there are 3 windows that are each 4 feet high and 27 inches wide. So he's got 3 windows in places. Now Jasper wants to paint the walls and the ceiling only, but not the windows or the door. He knows that he can paint 120 square feet with 1 quart of paint, and each quart of paint costs $6.75. So ultimately, how much will it cost Jasper to paint his room? Now, this is a multi-step problem, right? There's actually just a ton of steps. So first of all, we're going to kind of think of what's the total area that he's going to cover, right? So we know he's going to cover his ceiling. So let's start with the ceiling. The ceiling is 14 feet long by 10 feet wide. So his ceiling is 140 square feet. Great. Well, what about his walls? Well, the walls are a little bit trickier in terms of process. Okay, so let's circle that because that's kind of a final thing. So the walls, we know that walls are 8 feet high, and he's got 2 walls that are 14 feet long. So 8 by 14 gives us 112 square feet. But remember, there are 2 of those walls. So if I multiply those together, I have 224 square feet. Now, he's got other walls that are also 8 feet high, but they are 10 feet, right? 8 by 10, because if you think about the ceiling, 2 sides of the ceiling are 14 feet here, and they meet up with the height of the wall to get the area of the walls. Okay, so that gives us 80 square feet, and again, there are 2 of those walls, so those 2 walls together are 160 square feet. So when I put my 4 walls together, I have 384 square feet. Well, let's play with that 384 because we have to take out the windows and the door. Okay, so I have 384 square feet on my walls that I'm dealing with. Let's start with the door because the door is the easy one, right? We know the door is 6 feet by 3.5 feet. So we know the door is 21 square feet. So I'm going to take away the 21 square feet, and now I have 363 square feet. Okay, so far so good. Now let's think about the windows. Okay, well the windows are 4 feet by 27 inches. So I've got to play with that 27 inches. 27 inches, if I change it to feet, are 2.25 feet. So the area of the windows is 4 times 2.25, which is 9 square feet. Don't forget, there are 3 windows. So that is 27 square feet. So if I take away 27 square feet, I now have 336 square feet that I'm going to paint on the walls. Okay, so let's go back to, I've got 140 square feet for the ceiling plus 336 square feet for the walls. So my total square feet that I'm going to be painting is 476 square feet. Well, if I'm going to use 120 square feet per quart, I'm going to take this answer and I'm going to divide by 120 because this means 1 quart of paint. So when I divide 476 divided by 120, I get something like 3.967. And that's how many quarts I'm going to need. Well, you can't go to Lowe's and say, I need 0.976 of a quart. They're like, no, you buy the quarts in full quarts. So we're going to need 4 quarts of paint. Well, if I need 4 quarts of paint and each quart costs me $6.75, I multiply, and it's going to cost Jasper $27 to paint his room. Now, he really should just buy a gallon at that point because we know that 4 quarts is a gallon, but alas, we don't know what the price is for gallon, and therefore $27 it is.